we go. Jake and Josh are here to analyze the game they love for the team they love. This is another Dolphins podcast. Here's your host, Jake Mendel and Josh Houtz.
For the fourth time in 5 weeks, welcome into a victory edition of another Dolphins podcast. Thank you all so much for joining us. We have everything you need to know as the Miami Dolphins handled the New York Giants 31-16. But I can't do that alone. I need to welcome in Joshua Houtz. Josh, happy Victory Monday, my friend.
Yeah, man, these Victory Mondays feel much better on this side of it, right? I didn't like last week too much. I mean, it lingered throughout the entire week, but it's nice to be back here after, like you mentioned, a 31-16 win where we will have some things to, talk about because it wasn't perfect, but I think that's what makes it so exciting that they just dismantled the Giants 31-16. So I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here talking Dolphins football with you on this Monday afternoon. How have you been, man?
It's nice when you can put your feet up first thing in the morning. You're still getting the crusties out of your eyes, getting comfy on the couch, and you just see Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs sad. That always makes me feel a little better. I mean, sports, we like to keep it a little more professional. We got to be petty a little bit, right? You see the Bills lose to begin the day. The Jets actually won, and all of a sudden, man, all eyes are on the Dolphins for that 1:00 game with an opportunity to take over the AFC East. It wasn't pretty, but man, was it fun.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Bills fans sad. Jets fans are sad, I believe, as well. And I just saw a meme from the Patriots.
Oh no,
fans.
Jets fans are happy. They beat Sean Payton.
Oh yeah. Okay, they're feeling good after that. I mean, we put 70 on them, so they shouldn't feel very good about that. But and then I just saw a New England meme showing that it was like you can kill the idea, showing Matt Patricia, but not the idea, or something like that, or the man. And it was Bill Belichick. So they're down and out right now. So it feels good to be a Dolphins fan. And like you mentioned, man, we took over first place again, did we not?
That's all you could ask for 5 weeks through the season. The Miami Dolphins are in sole possession of first place in the AFC East. And to start talking about this game, you have to bring up the Buffalo game. You have to see, all right, first loss of the season, how's this team going to respond? You see people on Twitter, I won't mention any names, Frank the Tank, talking about how it was all a mirage and how this team is going to fail and it's going to implode. That's really not what we saw from this team. And the question everyone was wondering, hey, how's this locker room going to react? We see all the quote from Xavier Howard, which kind of stood out and caught everyone's attention when he said everybody in this building knows what the FI can do when talking about how he's not shadowing receivers. And then even after the Giants lost to the Dolphins, we had Connor Williams coming out. Mike McDaniel's said that Connor was angry that the team lost and he wasn't around to play. So you're hearing all these different things from different players that they were annoyed, angry, and we saw it used positively instead of, hey, here comes the spiraling out of control for the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that was what was so impressive. I mean, we'll eventually get into it, but they were times, Tua throws a pick. You do think this thing could spiral out of the control, like, the same old Dolphins, but it just seems like this is a different team, right? They battled back. Loved hearing Mike McDaniel say that about Connor Williams, because let's be honest, that offensive line needs him in the lineup if, we want to go places that we expect. So it's awesome to hear that he was down and out because he didn't make it. And Xavier Howard, I mean, that defense stepped up when we needed them to. We know that the Giants were without 3 starting offensive linemen. They were without Saquon Barkley, but we wanted to see all eyes on that, how everyone responded, but really how that defense responded after such a dreadful performance last week.
It's hard not to start with talking about this Miami Dolphins offense. Most total yards through 5 games. The Dolphins in 2023 sit at 2,568 yards. Joshua, that is 41 yards more than the Rams had the greatest show on turf. How much fun. I mean, we're homers. You mentioned it before the show. We could sit here and talk about how they're doing it. But before we talk about just flat out speed, how much fun is it just watching this flat out speed Achane taking a run to the left side? You snap your fingers. He's in the end zone. No matter where the Dolphins are, at any spot in the field, this offense can score. And it's been such a treat to watch.
Yeah, and we joked that this was Mike McDaniel using Stephen Ross's credit card and building Madden Ultimate Team, but I mean, it does feel like that, right, man? And then you just think about all the years you played Madden and how much speed killed, and how you love to use those outside runs, and how you love to use those crossing receivers and use that speed to take the top off. So he really is running a video game offense, and you're right, man. It's all about speed. I mean, you see. I'll pull up the picture eventually, but you saw, all the next gen stats, like the top 7 ball carriers this year were Achane and Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert, I believe, right? All 7 of them. And it just, I don't know, man. It kind of seems unfair that, and I love it because it's just been so many years we've been waiting for this. So is it going to be called the greatest show on surf? I see a lot of people saying that. Is that what they're going with. Someone needs to come up with a better name than that, right? But dude, most yards ever through the first 5 games. That's insane. I think it says most yards in franchise history through the air, 1,639 ever, and then it's the 4th most rushing yards. So 3 500-yard games this season already, and 5 is the franchise record. So they're doing unbelievable things, and to think that they're 3 points away from breaking the all-time points scoring record in a game, right? They would have had the NFL record if they would have kicked that field goal. Just wild, man. And we're into week 5. Let's just cross our fingers it stays this way, right?
Those speeds, Tyreek Hill has the fastest speed, followed by Achane, Hill, Mostert, Hill, Achane. So that's the fastest speeds in the NFL.
Achane looks faster though, right? Can we agree? He looked like he was hawking him down on that well, Tyreek Hill got tracked down from behind, but it looked like Achane was like jogging and he could have passed him if you wanted to, right?
It's crazy. There are 3 plays we can bring up right away that just really highlight how fast this team is, right? There was that Tyreek Hill bomb down the right sideline where I guess McDaniel called one play, Tua adjusted things at the line, and that's fun. It's good to talk about when it's positive, adds a little wrinkle to the story. And then on the left side, we mentioned the A-chain run to the left side, and then Josh, what was it, like a crossing pattern where Tyreek Hill took the ball on the right side? He started bursting down the left side. And somehow, man, this should have been his 2nd touchdown of the day. But instead, he got caught from behind. And people are acting like that might be a loss for this Miami Dolphins receiving core. You mentioned it. Devon Achane's been calling out Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's come out and saying he's washed. So, man, are the Dolphins in trouble if Tyreek Hill's going to be caught like this?
Not at all. That just means there's so much more speed, right? I mean, that just means that Devon Achane is that next level speed that you want. So it's just crazy. But dude, Tyreek Hill had 3 plays over, was it 60 yards? Am I correct?
That's insane, man.
Dude is absurd. 8 catches, 181 yards, 1 touchdown. He wanted to get 2,000 yards, and I mean, we all joke about it, but he could be on pace for that. I also have written down here, Dolphins are currently 1st in scoring offense with 36.2 points per game, total offense 513.6 yards per game, yards per play 8.3. Passing offense, 327. Rushing offense, 185. First downs and red zone offense. I did not realize I had that much written down. My bad. That's a lot. Holy crap, dude.
How dare you take notes? You just made every single teacher you ever had roll over in their grave. Oh no, I studied too hard.
I didn't take notes in school though. I used to write like Macbeth on my arms and stuff to try to remember. It was bad how it's bad.
Can you believe that Tyreek Hill's average target was 6 yards down the field? He finished for 8 for this is like the most cliche, like generic, like what everybody thought Tyreek Hill was going to be in Miami type game where it was just dink and dunk. But even then they still played the F it. Tyreek's open down there somewhere at that big passing touchdown. So overall, man, Tyreek Hill went absolutely bananas. 8 for 181 and a touchdown. You mentioned it before the show. We're homers, and I got to do a better job at remembering that. And this is something I'm not trying to hate here. But when you look at how this offense was operating throughout the day, I'm just going to run through some numbers here. Again, I'm not trying to hate. I just want to get your thoughts. Devon Achane caught his 1 target. Raheem Mostert caught both of his targets. Braxton Berrios, both of his targets. Ced Wilson caught all 4 of his targets for 52 yards. Shout out him. He had a great day. Tyreek Hill caught 8 of his 9 targets. Joshua, there's one name.
I know where you're going with this.
Waddle.
Yeah.
5 receptions on 10 targets for 35 yards. What's your initial reaction?
I mean, we wanted them to get more involved, and at least they tried it, right? I mean, I know that the 1 interception to Tua, that Tua threw in the end zone, I think it was before the end of the half. It was into triple coverage, basically, but I think that one was intended for Waddle, so there's that one. But he did make that awesome touchdown catch, right? I mean, the first one of the game, Tua rolled to the left and threw it, up high where only Waddle could grab it. And he went up there and soared up there and used those hands that, so many people have wanted to see. So I'm liking that there's 10 targets, but dude, only catching 5 of those, only getting him the ball that many times. I mean, try to figure out a better way, right? I mean, fabricate those targets if you have. And you mentioned Ced Wilson. Some of us kind of even forgot he was around, right? Until you saw number 11 catch the ball and you're like, oh, damn, okay, Ced Wilson's in this game. So shout out to everyone that just stepped up. And we're going to talk about Tua. I mean, he's still, is he leading the league in passing yards, I believe? But a lot of people were down on last week's performance. If anything, you could be a little bit down on this one, right? I mean, he made some fantastic throws, stepped up when needed to, always bounces back great, but 2 very costly interceptions. And they were both to Waddle, thinking about it now. The one he hesitated and threw it over his head, behind him. So those right there, that was 2 targets that led to picks and were not Waddle's fault. So better days are ahead, and I think that's what's exciting when you can win 31-16.
The only thing I could think of at that stat sheet is I go back to the I don't know, I can't believe I referenced this so much. Merrick's son's Durham Smythe game where he had 9 touchdowns in Madden. It just looked like they decided, like, hey, it's been 4 weeks. We haven't seen a bunch of Jalen Waddle. They had this excellent celebration plan where they used the football as like a crank to wind up the penguin waddling toy, which I thought was pretty cool. But I think that was just kind of the idea that Tua wanted. He saw how well this offense was playing, and he thought, Tyreek's got his numbers. Let's get Waddle his numbers. And we kind of, as fans, think like that. I know teams don't think like that, but what we see here, I don't blame Waddle. I don't even really blame the offense. It's just, hey, sometimes when you force the ball, issues occur, and it's nice knowing that, hey, you can do that. You can try to stuff the stat for your players and get that kind of slap on the wrist reminder, like, hey, that's not necessarily how it works, and have it not completely derail the game. That's the coolest part, knowing that Tua, he threw a ball into the end zone. I think his arm was actually hit too on one of the interceptions. Hey, but he throws a pick six in the end zone, goes back the entire other way. That's the only touchdown the Giants scored. Josh, you mentioned it at the top about how different things feel. This is an offense that, hey, no, I don't want Tua throwing these 2 interceptions every week, but knowing that when you have an opponent that just isn't on the same playing field as you, that you can make those mistakes and not for a second feel the littlest bit queasy unless you took the Dolphins covering the spread. That is such a refreshing feeling, man. And it's not something like, hey, just ignore the interceptions, but understand, hey, these issues can happen. We don't have to overreact about them too much.
Yeah, because again, in years past, everything was spiral out of control. Same way with some of these
Yes.
losses, right? You mentioned it, the bouncing back. How are they going to do it this week? They were doing it throughout this game, so you just love to see it, I think. And it was just again a total team effort. And we're talking about the offense, praising them. That running game is insane, right, Jake? I had written down that I love to bring up how there's always a thunder in that backfield. Raheem Mostert at the end of this game. I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but he was just bullying dudes. I tried to joke that you can't spell Marshawn Lynch without Raheem Mostert. Obviously, that's not true, but he was just bullying
Yes.
dudes over. I was hoping people were like sitting there trying to think it and like realize that letters weren't missing. But that entire backfield, and Chris Brooks was even in that Alec Ingold role a little bit. We all see the clip going around Twitter where he's opening up holes. So you love to see it. I think Kendall Lamb, Isaiah Wynn, and someone else got involved on that big run over the left side, that 76-yarder, and it's just a
I
breath
like
of
Gunnar
fresh air.
Wins. He was all
Yeah.
over the place. He's
Yep, and
awesome
it's
being back.
it's just a breath of fresh air to finally see this offensive line and this run game, and it's just all to come together because they're playing in really good football right now.
And the greatest thing about the rushing attack is that it's such a stabilizing force. It can really just calm down the offense when you have, I don't know, let me check the notes here. Devon Achane averaging 12 yards a carry. Jesus, 12 yards a carry is just bananas. You got Raheem Mostert at 6.5 yards per carry. As a team, the Dolphins average 9.7 yards per carry. Something that I thought was very interesting, Josh. Snaps. Raheem Mostert is still out snapping Devon Achane 32-26. A big reason why I don't think this is going to change is I think Raheem Mostert does a few more things in terms of pass coverage that I think is very important. And I think there are more scenarios where you can have Mostert be on the field when he's not involved as being the ball carrier. I'm not saying Achane can't do that, but being a rookie, I think when he's out there, you want to say, hey, you're fast. We know what you're good at. Let's not try to, put too much on your plate this early on, especially when you can, I don't know, checks notes, have 96 yards after contact.
Yeah, and this is a little guy that a lot of people didn't know how he'd hold up right in the NFL,
Mhm.
and it's just insane, man. He's just playing out of his mind. I think the first Dolphins running back to have back to back to back 100-yard games since I believe it was Jay Ajayi, and then there was another stat that had him up there probably as a rookie for the first player that throughout his first 3 games or have back to back 100-yard games with a touchdown, and Barry Sanders is one of the names up there with him. So dude's just playing insane, and it's just crazy. I know that we all saw the stat with how many yards is it? You probably already said it. Between him and Christian McCaffrey, isn't it like
Oh, I
60
haven't,
some?
no.
Okay, there's a stat going around where there's like a 60-yard difference between the two, but the gap in how many carries are like 50 or something more for McCaffrey. So it's just insane that what Devon Achane's doing with such little touches, and to think that we have Raheem Mostert, I think 8 touchdowns total, and Devon Achane 7 touchdowns total. I mean, this Dolphins offense is just incredible. I
But
just hope it never ends. The Cinderella story. I hope it never ends.
and again, not trying to hate, but you do kind of put a star next to the 3 turnovers, 2 ahead, 2 interceptions. Achane put the ball on the ground. Even Raheem Mostert had his 3rd fumble in 2 weeks, I should say, but that one went out of bounds. All that said, though, I mean, man, this offense, especially at home, to say the Dolphins don't have a home field advantage is insane because you think about it. The Dolphins averaged 10.2 yards per play against the Broncos, 501 yards in total. They averaged 11.4 yards per play. They averaged more yards per play, Josh, against the Giants than they did when they scored 70 points. Through 3 quarters, the Dolphins were averaging 11.4 yards per play. You take away those turnovers, obviously turnovers, breaking news, change things. This is the same offense that scored 70 points back-to-back weeks. You're seeing what they can do in terms of beating up bad teams. That was Jeff Schwartz who put that out there, which is just, it's mind-boggling that you can go 2 straight games at home and just sustain this offense that is just record-breaking, world-defying. It's bananas. And one more stat I have, Josh, here. The Dolphins average 109 yards per game more than Philly. Philly is number 2 at 404 yards per game. The Panthers average 109 yards less than the Eagles per game. They're 24th in the league. The same gap from 1 to 2 is from 2 to 24th. That is just how insane this Dolphins offense is. And man, it's been such a treat to watch.
Yeah, and we see him every week add new wrinkles to things, right? I mean, it's just crazy that, we don't even know what the limit is and where this thing could go. I mean, we just had Chase Claypool. I mean, don't get your expectations too high, but, that's another guy that brings a different dynamic and some speed here. Before we move on to defense, Jake, I just have to ask your opinion on the offensive line. I know Isaiah Wynn got banged up, and that was you hated to see that, especially with how well he's been playing.
We didn't really get too much. It kind of looked like a stinger. I know he came back in the game, but dude, generally speaking, this offensive line was awesome. I think Tua was sacked once. There was 2 quarterback hits. And I mean, we knew going in at the Dolphins had the biggest point spread in the entire NFL. We weren't scared about this game, but if there was anything that could go wrong, it started with that Giants defensive front really just bothering Tua for 4 quarters and forcing him into mistakes. The Giants offensive or defensive front did just that, and it didn't even matter. So that just kind of adds to how impressive this offensive line has been. Josh, one question I have for you. Not only did Ced Wilson have more targets and receptions than someone like Braxton Berrios, he actually outsnapped him. I don't think this is going to be happening every week, but can you tell me a little bit more just watching about this offense, right? It's Tyreek Hill, it's Waddle, and then you have the running backs. All of a sudden you have Ced Wilson get involved. You mentioned Chase Claypool is going to get in the mix. This team is showing off wrinkles, and they aren't done. There is so much more room for this group to grow, and you're seeing different guys get involved.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of that is Braxton Berrios. I know he was showing up on the injury report throughout the week, so they might just been, taking it, giving him an opportunity to rest and seeing what said Wilson. I mean, you're already paying him that much money. Let him go out there and make some plays. I mean, and it was, again, a little shocking seeing him make some plays, but he, again, understands the offense, and he's a veteran who wants to, showcase at least his value. I mean, he's probably not going to be here past, next season maybe. So get Cedric Wilson involved. And that's just another wrinkle. I mean, at what point is he going to throw a pass, right? I mean, we know he's QB3 on the right. I guess he's QB4 now, but you know what I mean? He has the ability there. So I'm intrigued to see the way this whole thing goes about. One more thing, Tua is 18-7 in his last 25 starts. That's the 4th best win percentage in the NFL. And I want to ask you before we move on, Tyreek Hill, best acquisition the Dolphins ever made. That has to be true, right? I mean, it's just, drafting players doesn't count. I mean, like a trade or a free agent signing, it has to be Tyreek Hill because he's incredible, man. I don't know that I've ever, you couldn't even imagine this type of player ever being on the Dolphins, right? Like ever. And that's just, every week he seems to surprise me. I'm just sorry. I had to say it.
How dare you get jazzed up about like one of the best receivers in history being on your favorite team? How dare you? No, man, it's just when you see the Dolphins trade for someone like Brandon Marshall, and then you see them go out and sign someone like a Mike Wallace, you start to get the idea of, I know I just made you almost cough up your water just saying both those names, but the point here is the Dolphins tried to get that number 1 wide receiver, and you thought you knew what number 1 wide receiver does. Brandon Marshall, he can move the sticks. You're going to throw the ball at him, he's going to catch it. Mike Wallace, he's going to take the top off defenses and get you double-digit touchdowns, believe it or not, even however ugly that was. Tyreek Hill, he's going to make every single defensive coordinator want to rip out every single hair they have on their head as they lose their mind trying to cover you. What we thought you were getting when you acquired a number 1 wide receiver and what the Dolphins got in Tyreek Hill, man, just trying to wrap your head around the differences has been so mind-blowing, and that's what makes it such a treat, where it goes back to what you're just saying. Like, once in a while, you just want to rant about how awesome he is because it doesn't come around that often.
Yeah, and they're putting up, again, video game numbers, and that's not even a slight against Jalen Waddle, who you can get equally as excited about. So it's just crazy how awesome this trade went down and just what this offense is morphing into. And again, just not sure I ever really thought better days like this would happen. Did we say first start 4-1 start since 2003? I had to throw that out there too. Wild.
And then you got the Panthers next week. This offense should really just keep on rolling. I like the idea of another. They're in these stat stuffing weeks, right? Where we saw a game like Raheem Mostert
Eagles
against the
soon.
Broncos.
Eagles in 2 weeks. That's the game I'm
Eagles.
going to, man. That's gonna be that's a Super Bowl preview right there.
Oh, are you officially going to that game?
I officially got tickets. Yeah, they were. Let's not talk about the price, but
Where are you?
Second row behind the Dolphins. At least that's what the tickets say. So, dude, yeah, they might be
Near
able to
the
hear me
50
yelling.
then?
Yeah, about there. Yeah,
Wow.
they should be able to hear me yelling.
Wow, you must.
I just don't want to die.
Those podcast guys must be paying you real well to get seats like that, man. That sounds like a blast. Are you queasy about that yet?
Yeah, a little bit.
Little bit. I like it. Let's switch over, Josh. Let's talk about the defense because weirdly enough, I'm not trying to be too hot takey here. I think Miami's defense was the star of Sunday's game. I think we really saw what this, on a surface level, what a Vic Fangio defense can do to opposing offenses, and that's just frustrate them and make it really hard to score points.
Yeah, and I think I was ignorant. I think I DM'd you and said, at one point that I, it was kind of a under the radar performance. I didn't seem like too taken away by everything they did. And then even though
It was
they had
very
seven,
quiet.
yeah, very. But then I went back and watched it a little bit, and you do see. I mean, Daniel Jones was in hell all day. I mean, this defense needed to bounce back. We saw the weaknesses in what the Giants were coming out with. We did mention Darren Waller having a big game, and he did. He was one of their lone bright spots out there. But just seeing everyone come together, seeing that pass rush equal 7 sacks by 6 different Dolphin players, AVG is continuing to step up, and it's just awesome to see his defense hopefully get it all together because a few weeks from now we should be getting our big hitters back. Eventually Jalen Ramsey's going to be added to this. Eli Apple won't be out there having to make some plays, which he did have a nice bounce back week. You have to give him credit. And Cater Co looked much more comfortable in the slot. And I want to see Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott always together, right? Let's make sure that's always happening.
God, what a great combo those two have become. And what I saw out of this Dolphins defense was the idea of just consistency. Every single play, we're going to make it so tough for you to walk down the field and score. You mentioned it, 7 sacks. I think they hit quarterbacks 14 times, 14 quarterback hits in the game. It might actually only be 11. My apologies. That should be something.
No, you're
it
right.
is 14.
14, yep.
Got you. Awesome. But what was missing, and I think what made this performance seem a little quiet, was that the Giants didn't turn the football over. They did not reach the end zone, and they did not turn the football over, which kind of has you feeling like a little awkward because you don't really have these big like firework type plays from this Miami Dolphin defense. Well, think about this. You have Jalen Phillips and Jalen Ramsey coming back. Those are your playmakers. Those are how you create those turnover-worthy plays in a game like this, where the Giants know they have 3 backup offensive linemen starting. They aren't going to air out the football. They're going to dink and dunk. They're going to look for the first guy they can see that is open and throw the ball. They aren't going to wait for things to develop or take shots down the field, because the second you turn the ball over, you are giving the Miami Dolphins offense another shot. So opposing teams are going to come into matchups with the Dolphins knowing that. And considering that, Josh, this defense still from minute 1 to minute 60, I mean, just torture this Giants offense all day, knowing that they are going to be as safe as possible with that ball.
Yeah, and he did it in so many ways. We mentioned Andrew Van Ginkel. I think he had what? Did he have 2 sacks? I know Zach Sieler was
1
all
sack and a tackle
1
for
sack.
loss
Okay,
and a pass defended.
It was Sieler that had the 2 sacks, and
Yeah.
I mean, he was just everywhere, man. And I mean, I'm not to discredit anything that Christian Wilkins has done, but ever since Zach Sealer's got paid, I mean, you can now see why they paid him. He's just been so disruptive. Christian Wilkins was in the backfield. I think David Long had one of his better games, but like you said, I mean, they did all this without a Jalen Ramsey, a Jalen Phillips. I mean, late in the season, these teams are going to be trying to get a gauge on what the Miami Dolphins defense is, and they're going to be watching tape that doesn't even have 2 of their best players in it, right? I mean, they didn't even get Brandon Jones acclimated. You hope that comes around, but to Vic Fangio's credit, we saw a lot more stunts. We saw more blitzing. We saw him, try to be more disruptive, and it worked out. Again, you hope to see it moving forward because the Giants were vulnerable, but overall, man, awesome performance. And every way you look at it, you just can praise the secondary, the front 7, you can praise everyone in this one. And I saw a stat, Jerome Baker had 8 tackles. He now has a tackle in all 87 games that he's appeared in. I don't know if that's worth anything, but that sounded cool.
The best ability is availability. So if he's out there and he's making tackles, that's something to be happy about. And I don't want this to be like pitting the sides, but like keep a game like this in mind when we talk about how the Dolphins defense doesn't win them games. Josh, the Giants scored 1 touchdown. It came out on pick 6. The Giants scoring drives, 13 yards, 4 plays, and 10 yards. I want to look at 2 of those scoring drives because the 4-play drive came when Tua threw a pick and the Dolphins gave up the ball at their own 23-yard line. The Giants were held to a field goal on that drive. The 10-play drive, where the Giants also scored a field goal, the Dolphins were leading 31-13. Ball ended up about the 50-yard line after a really bad Jake Bailey punt that only went about 20 yards. So not only did the offense go 3 and out, but then the special teams didn't help out the defense by giving the Giants offense the ball at the 50-yard line. Started with an AVG sack right away. The defense started. Doesn't matter, you're getting the ball at the 50-yard line. We're going to punch you in the face. Of course, something we scouted ahead of time, and if you listen to another Dolphins podcast, you knew that Tyrod Taylor would run for 9 yards on 4th and 8. You knew far in advance that we called that no problems asked. But then David Long, you mentioned it, how everyone was getting involved, a lot of different players. He had to run stuff for a 1-yard loss, and then Sieler forces a 51 field. I'm a mess. Sieler sack forces a 51-yard field goal attempt. So, man, just seeing this Dolphins defense, they gave up. The Giants scored 16 points. 13 of them were given up by the offense. And I will argue that right here and now, just because you think about those 2 turnovers from Tua and how this defense still just stood strong time after time and just let the Giants do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and we continue to see that throughout the season. I mean, there were other times in games earlier in the year where it was a similar situation. They weren't put in the best situations, and they went out there and, made a stop, forced a field goal, which I do want to take credit for that. I don't know if you saw it, Jake, but I tweeted out, hope this MF or shanks the F out of this or something. And he shanked that field goal. But that will probably never happen again. But But yeah, man, I mean, it's just nice that this defense showed up and showed out in so many different ways, and to think about what's going to come. I mean, Bradley Chubb almost got a couple sacks. I mean, you love to see when he's almost, making plays. But in all seriousness, I think this Dolphins defense has room to grow, and they're going to get even better. And that's why other teams should be scary. But you're right, man. It's going to alter. The offense will win one week. Maybe we need a defense to step up the next week. And we just want to see it happen in those big games, like against the Bills and some of these the Eagles in a few weeks. Go out there and punch one of those teams in the mouth.
Yeah, and that's why the Bills game was so surprising, is because the idea of the Vic Fangio defense is if you're going to score points, and especially if you're going to score touchdowns, it's going to need to be these long scoring drives where you have to get first down after first down, maybe 4 or 5. Craziest sound, but maybe even 6 times before you score a touchdown. Holding the Giants where, 2 of the field goal drives are over 10 plays. And that's on top of the fact that 2 of those drives, 2 of the Giants' 3 drives started in plus territory is just such an impressive stat. Eli Apple deserves a few more flowers because he led the team with 9 tackles, 1 pass defended. He even had half a sack. AVG, you mentioned, he had a tackle for loss and a pass defended. He's going to be another fun one to watch, man, because we saw David Long Jr. step back and have a good game as well. So how does Miami get all these guys involved? You mentioned it. Jerome Baker had a nice performance, 8 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hits. If AVG is pushing for coverage time when Jalen Phillips comes back, I mean, great problem to have, man. But these pass rushers are going to be a wild race to watch the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I even have written down Agba had 1.5 sacks. So, I mean, it was literally everyone up there getting involved. And to your point, I guess if it were up to me, I think Jalen Phillips and AVG should be out there. But I think what Bradley Chubb does for some of those other guys on the defensive line opens things up to them. So, like you mentioned, good problem to have. Figure it out, Vic Fangio. That's why we're paying you all that money. But everyone was getting involved in this one. And I think Travis Wingfield said it. The Dolphins might lead the NFL, I believe. Don't quote me. I mean, I guess you can quote me on this. 43 quarterback hits, which, again, we were asking for more of a pass rush. Maybe it's been there and we're just not really noticing because, like we said, this kind of felt like an under-the-radar performance. But when you look at the numbers, I mean, 14 quarterback hits, 0 touchdowns allowed from the defense, 7 sacks. I mean, they went out there and they laid a lick into the New York Giants, and that's what we wanted to see.
Josh, which stat sounds better? Giants averaged 2.9 yards on the ground. Does that one, or Giants running backs average 2 yards per carry on the ground? Which one do you like more?
I guess 2 yards per carry.
I like the 2 yards.
I don't know. Either way, I would say it doesn't mean anything without Saquon Barkley. But am I rude for thinking that, or wrong for thinking that?
I just like the 2.9 yards per carry because I go back to Daniel Jones had a couple carries. I mentioned the Tyrod Taylor scramble for a first on 4th down.
Damn
We did
mobile
see
quarterbacks.
the mobile quarterbacks, man. They are still getting to this Dolphins team, but the fact it was still just 2.9 yards per carry is pretty impressive. Something I thought was surprising, Pro Football Focus grades are not out yet, but PFF does have Miami as a top 12 team in terms of coverage, Josh. Does that surprise you?
I guess I'm a little surprised by that. Yeah, a little bit.
It is a little surprising. You think about last week against Buffalo, you think about that Chargers game. But I think too, you think about how high scoring these games are. You kind of lose track of the how well this team has been playing. And two, shout out Cater who I wish I had his stats, but man, he came back. He was a tackling machine and definitely looked more like himself. Uh, Let me see. Am I missing anyone else here? Eli Apple, that was such a big surprise. Xavier Howard had a strong performance. He's another one I really wanted to wait for the PFF grades because I thought he also had a couple bad plays and a couple good plays, aka the great Xavier Howard performance where the good outweighs the bad. But overall, man, just a strong performance from this defense against a Giants team where you expect them to play this well.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Maybe that's why you look at this, and at least during the game, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, maybe I expected more because I just wanted to completely put the hurting on them. But like you said, man, all season long they've been playing solid. Bend don't break type football. And when you have an offense going out there and putting up points like they are, I mean, the perfect yin to the yang. You just hope that they get better throughout the season when they add those key pieces, and you hope to see like a rookie get involved, right? See more Cam Smith out there. I don't know if he just doesn't understand the playbook as much. They don't trust him over in Eli Apple. Which I guess now you can kind of say they don't really trust Cater Kohu out there over in Eli Apple, right? I mean, he's probably better fitted in the nickel Kohu, but do want to see the way this defense shifts over the next few weeks because we know it's a marathon, not a sprint. Is that the right saying? I think I did it right.
Yeah, you actually nailed it, Josh. I'm super proud of you about that one. I don't know if I'm wording this the right way, Josh, but before we wrap up here, we do have the Carolina Panthers coming to Hard Rock Stadium next week and win this team. When you have situations like this, yeah, there are some, if we're playing, what was the name? Minesweeper, where you just, I never could figure it out. You just would press a button and eventually there'd just be a bomb under you and you'd explode type thing.
Such a random game. Was there any I don't even understand how it worked. Just you randomly push the buttons, right? And eventually one would just explode you.
It's going to be real depressing. Someone's going to send like a 300 character tweet at us about how stupid we are about not knowing how Minesweeper. But yeah, no, I could never figure out the rhyme, the reasoning, because sometimes it'd be a yellow one I'd click on and it'd be a bomb. Sometimes it'd be red, I'd click on it, wouldn't be a bomb. What I'm trying to get at here is that I don't think the Panthers are a bomb game. The Eagles down the road, the Chiefs down the road might be bomb games. But you bring up like, hey, we want to see more out of Cam Smith. We want to see more out of these younger guys. This game against the Panthers, does it open an opportunity to maybe test some things? And if so, one, how weird is it seeing that the Dolphins can test things out in games like this? And two, who are some of those players you'd like to see get a shot against, a rookie quarterback, someone like Bryce Young?
We were talking about the Panthers, and the first thing I get scared about is Bryce Young being able to run, right? God, I'm not nervous a little bit about that. But is it cliche to say Cam Smith again? I already said Cam Smith. Chase Claypool's a guy who probably doesn't have the playbook down too much, but you just get him out there for an end around or something, get his feet wet, maybe take the top off the defense. I guess I'd go with those two. I was going to continue, but I think those two would be the biggest. Maybe Chris Brooks too. Give him some of those short yardage situations. I was a little drunk during the game, but I was like, run the damn ball on short yardage situations because it always feels like we're throwing it in those obvious situations. So get Chris Brooks a little bit involved there. So those will be the three guys. What about you, Jake?
Man, I definitely want to piggyback on Cam Smith. I like the idea of maybe just, hey, go cover Adam Thielen for 4 quarters. I think that's like a really nice learning experience. And the way this Dolphins, God, man, I sound like such a spoiled fan because I know any given Sunday, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like you could put Cam Smith and Adam Thielen as like a great learning experience and like bumper the entire defense around that to make sure he doesn't like lose you the game type thing. I might be overthinking it too much. That's one. And with the safeties, man, there are a couple safeties that just remain kind of in the mix here, whether it's Brendan Jones. You still got a couple guys on the practice squad. So I just kind of like to see the depth chart kind of clean itself out a little bit there.
Isn't Ethan Bonner, isn't he one of the safeties? And I right? Did I say his name right? I'm a little bit nervous.
Say why you brought him up.
Yeah, because Tyreek said he was like the second fastest player on the team. So, I mean,
how funny is that,
if he's that fast, man, like you gotta try to do something with him. People are like posting pictures. I'm like, this is the guy you're talking about, apparently. So I hope at the end of the year when the Dolphins do end up winning the Super Bowl, they do have this race, right? We need to see it. I want to see this whole race go down because there's so much speed on this roster, and it's just a good time. But back to the Carolina game, man, you need to get that big lead. You need to, prove that this isn't a, trap game, everyone wants to call it. But go out there, lay a lick into them in the first. I don't know why I keep saying lay a lick. I don't know where I got that overnight. But, take a big lead early in the first half and then come out in the second half and experiment with some of these guys and give them those reps because, you might need Cam Smith later in the season and just throwing them out there, forged by fire. Well, you know what I'm saying. You're just throwing them out there late in the year when you want them to play, the best football when it counts most isn't really the best situation for a young guy like that. So I'd like to see some of these guys get some reps. And Chase Claypool, I know Tua was talking about him pregame or post-game. So who knows? Maybe they're going to start building some chemistry and he can rejuvenate his career. But, we'll see.
The Miami Dolphins are officially 4-1, and you better check your pulse if you're not fired up. We will be back throughout the week with some more Dolphins content as we prepare for the Carolina Panthers, but that is all we have for now. Thank you all so much for listening to another Dolphins podcast. We will talk to you next time, and most importantly, fins up.
Enjoy the rest of your Victory Monday. Fins up.
Fins up.